I died in a biosafety level 3 laboratory on a Tuesday. The airlock sealed behind me with a hiss I mistook for routine. I was wearing full Tyvek. I was following protocol. I was 26 years old and my lungs were filling with a nerve agent that had no business being in the ventilation system. By the time I realized my respirator was feeding me poison, the door was already locked. From the viewing window, Silas Vane watched me fall. His hand was on the manual override. His expression was mild, almost curious. Like I was a mouse in a maze he had designed for a class project. Beside him stood Mira Holt, my childhood friend, my maid of honor. She was holding a clipboard. She was taking notes. The last thing I saw before my diaphragm froze was Mira checking her watch. I woke up at my own graduation party. The champagne was flat. The canapés were lukewarm. And Silas Vane was raising a glass to welcome the new cohort of researchers to Pharos Biotech. His voice was the same. Smooth. Polished. The voice of a man who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. "Welcome to the island," he said. "Welcome to the future of viral vector research. You are the chosen 12. The best minds of your generation. And I am here to offer you the opportunity that will define your careers." I gripped the edge of the table. My hands were shaking so violently the champagne flute slipped and shattered on the marble floor. Every head turned toward me. Silas paused mid-toast. His eyes found mine. A flicker of irritation crossed his face before he masked it with concern. "Dr. Mercer," he said. "Thea, are you quite all right?" I stared at him. I stared at the man who had murdered me. And I said the only thing my body would allow. "I need to leave." The memories came in waves during the hour that followed. I locked myself in a restroom stall and pressed my forehead against the cold metal door. I remembered everything. I remembered the job offer. I remembered the gleaming promise of cutting-edge research on a private island off the coast of Maine. I remembered Mira telling me it was the chance of a lifetime. I remembered signing a contract that handed over my passport for the duration of the project. I remembered the first time I noticed the discrepancies in the safety logs. I remembered confronting Silas. I remembered him smiling and telling me I was being paranoid. I remembered the airlock door closing. I remembered dying. And I remembered what happened after. My parents received a settlement. $2 million wired within 72 hours of my death. Silas visited them personally. He told them I had violated safety protocols. He told them my negligence had endangered the entire facility. He told them he was waiving the company's right to sue my estate out of respect for their grief. My parents did not question him. They cashed the check. They bought a lake house. They did not attend my memorial service because it conflicted with their closing date. Mira posted a tribute on Instagram. She said I was like a sister to her. She used a photo from our college graduation. She tagged Silas in the comments with a heart emoji. 6 months later, she was promoted to Director of Research Operations. I learned all of this in the moments after my death. While my body was frozen in the morgue. While my consciousness drifted somewhere between rage and disbelief. And then I was back. Standing at my graduation party. Alive. Terrified. And absolutely certain of one thing. I was not going to die on that island again. I left the restroom and walked straight toward the exit. Silas intercepted me before I reached the door. His hand landed on my elbow. Light. Proprietary. The touch of a man who believed he owned everything he brushed against. "Thea," he said. "You look pale." Let me call the house physician. I don't need a physician, I said. I need my passport. I need to leave the island. I am not participating in this program. His grip tightened almost imperceptibly. His smile did not falter. I'm afraid that is not possible, he said. You signed the contract. You accepted the signing bonus. You passed the security clearance. The ferry does not return to the mainland for another 8 weeks. You are committed. I pulled my arm free. The contract has a medical withdrawal clause. I will claim mental health grounds. I will pay back the bonus. I will swim to the mainland if I have to. I am not staying here. Mira appeared at Silas's side. She was wearing a dress the color of a fresh bruise. Her expression was a perfect mask of sisterly concern. Thea, she said. What is going on? You have been acting strange all evening. Is this about the conference in Singapore? I blinked. My mind raced through the fragmented memories of this timeline. Singapore. Yes. I had registered for an international virology summit. It was in 3 days. I had a plane ticket. I had a hotel reservation. I had a presentation slot on my research into adenoviral vectors. In my previous life, I had canceled that trip. Silas had told me it would interfere with the project orientation. Mira had said I was being selfish. They had convinced me to stay. This time, I would not be convinced. Yes, I said. It is about Singapore. I am presenting at the summit. I am leaving tomorrow. Mira's smile tightened. Thea, we discussed this. The team needs you here. The orientation is critical. You can present next year. No, I said. I cannot. I will not. I am going. Silas exchanged a look with Mira. It was a quick glance. A private signal. I recognized it from my previous life. It was the look they exchanged before they told me my airlock training was being rescheduled. Before they told me there was a contamination scare that required me to work late. Before every small manipulation that led me step by step toward that sealed room. Thea, Silas said. His voice dropped to a low, soothing register. Let us discuss this privately. Come to my office. I knew better than to go anywhere alone with him. I knew the layout of this building. I knew where the security cameras were. I knew how long it took the island's police response team to arrive. 22 minutes on a good day. In my previous life, I had calculated it while bleeding out on the laboratory floor. I'm not going to your office, I said. I'm going to my quarters to pack. If you try to stop me, I will scream. I will tell everyone in this room exactly what kind of research you are really doing here. The threat was a bluff. I had no evidence yet. I only had memories of a timeline that had been erased. But Silas did not know that. He studied my face for a long moment. Assessing. Calculating. Then he stepped back. Of course, he said. You are clearly unwell. Rest tonight. We will discuss this in the morning. He gestured to Mira. Escort Dr. Mercer to her quarters. Make sure she is comfortable. Mira walked me to my assigned room in the residence wing. The room was small and sparse. A bed. A desk. A window that overlooked the rocky shoreline. I had lived in this room for 6 weeks in my previous life. I had memorized every crack in the ceiling. Mira closed the door behind us. Her kind expression evaporated the moment the latch clicked. What is wrong with you? She hissed. Do you have any idea what you nearly cost us back there? Silas was furious. He could pull your offer. He could blacklist you from every research institution in the country. You are throwing away everything. I turned to face her. In my previous life, Mira had been my closest friend. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We attended the same university. We applied to Pharos together. I thought we were sisters. I thought she loved me. But in my previous life, she had watched me die. She had taken notes. She had checked her watch. So I looked at her now and I saw a stranger. I do not care what Silas does, I said. I am leaving tomorrow. I have a flight to catch. Mira stared at me. Her expression flickered. Something dark passed through her eyes. Your passport is in the administrative safe, she said. All researcher passports are held for the duration of the program. You know this. You agreed to this. How exactly are you planning to leave? I had forgotten about the passport. The contract specified that all personal documents be surrendered upon arrival. It was a security measure, supposedly, to prevent corporate espionage. In reality, it was a leash. Then I will go to the mainland without a passport, I said. I will contact the embassy. I will figure it out. Mira laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Thea. The ferry only runs once every 2 months. You cannot leave this island unless Silas authorizes it. There are no cell towers. No internet. The satellite phones are locked in the communications room. You are trapped here. And honestly, you should be grateful. This is the best opportunity you will ever have. Stop acting like a paranoid child. She left. I heard the door lock behind her. I stood in the center of the room. My heart was pounding. My mind was racing. I walked to the window and looked out at the ocean. The mainland was a gray smudge on the horizon. 17 miles of icy water. I could not swim that far. I could not call for help. I could not access my passport. But I knew something Mira did not know. I knew exactly what Silas was planning. I knew exactly how little time I had. And I knew exactly where the emergency radio was hidden. The radio was stored in the old boathouse on the north side of the island. It was a relic from the days when Pharos was a fishing research station. It ran on a backup generator and broadcast on a marine emergency frequency. I had discovered it by accident in my previous life while hiding from a mandatory team building exercise. It still worked. I had tested it. I had not known then why I felt the need to memorize its location. Now I understood. Survival is the slow accumulation of contingencies. I waited until midnight. The residence wing was silent. The hallway lights were dimmed to conserve generator power. I had packed a small bag with water, a flashlight, a first aid kit, the clothes I could carry. I slipped out of my room through the window. The drop to the ground was 6 feet. I landed hard on the wet grass. The wind off the ocean cut through my jacket. I ran. The boathouse was dark and smelled of salt and old diesel. The radio was bolted to a metal shelf in the corner. I pulled it free and turned it on. Static. I adjusted the frequency. More static. Then a voice. A crackling, distant voice. This is the U.S. Coast Guard. State your emergency. I keyed the microphone. My voice was barely a whisper. This is Dr. Thea Mercer at Pharos Biotech Island. I am being held against my will. There is a potential biological hazard on site. Unregistered viral vectors. I cannot give more details over open frequency. Please send immediate assistance. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned. Dr. Mercer, we have received your transmission. We are dispatching a team. Stay calm. Can you confirm your location? I confirmed the coordinates. I told them I would try to reach the dock. I turned off the radio. I did not want Silas to triangulate the signal. I began walking back toward the residence wing. I never made it. A pair of security guards emerged from the darkness. Their flashlights blinded me. Their hands grabbed my arms. The radio was ripped from my grip and smashed against the rocks. Dr. Mercer, one of them said. Mr. Vane would like a word. They dragged me to the main laboratory building. The building I had died in. Silas was waiting in the lobby. He was wearing a white lab coat. His hands were clasped behind his back. His expression was calm, almost serene. Thea, he said, you are making this so much more difficult than it needs to be. What did you tell the Coast Guard? I did not answer. He sighed. It does not matter. We have a protocol for this. Your radio message has already been intercepted and flagged as a false alarm. My communications team is very efficient. The Coast Guard will arrive. We will apologize for the misunderstanding. We will explain that a new researcher suffered a psychotic break during orientation. We will offer to pay the response fee. They will leave. And you will remain here, under psychiatric observation, for as long as necessary. He nodded at the guards. Take her to the observation suite. The observation suite was a euphemism. It was a small windowless room in the basement of the laboratory. It had a bed with restraints. It had a camera in the corner. It had a locked door. I had heard rumors about this room in my previous life. Researchers who asked too many questions. Researchers who tried to leave. They were brought here. They were evaluated. Some of them were terminated from the program. Some of them were never mentioned again. I sat on the bed and tried to breathe. My hands were shaking. But I was not panicking. I was thinking. I was running through every variable. Every piece of information I had gathered in my previous life. Every mistake I had made. Every route I had failed to take. And I realized something. The Coast Guard might not believe Silas's cover story. Not if there was evidence. Not if I could give them something undeniable. An hour later, the door opened. Mira entered. She was carrying a tray of food and a glass of water. She set it on the small table beside the bed. Thea, she said. You idiot. What were you thinking? You could have ruined everything. I looked at the tray. I looked at the water. In my previous life, I had accepted food from Mira without hesitation. I had trusted her completely. I am not eating that, I said. Mira rolled her eyes. It is not poisoned. Silas wants you alive. For now. Alive, but compliant. I know what Silas wants, I said. He wants me dead. He wants the insurance payout. Just like he wanted the payout for Dr. Keller. And Dr. Singh. And the 3 technicians whose deaths were ruled accidental exposures. Mira's expression flickered. It was a tiny movement. A twitch of the left eyelid. But I saw it. She had not known I knew about the others. How do you know about Keller? She said. Her voice was different now. Flatter. Colder. I know everything, I said. I know about the modified vectors. I know about the safety reports you falsified. I know about the life insurance policies the company takes out on every researcher who joins the program. I know that you and Silas have been running this operation for 5 years. I know that the Coast Guard will find the bodies buried on the south side of the island if they dig deep enough. This last part was a guess. I had no proof of buried bodies. But the look on Mira's face told me I was right. She stood very still. Her hand drifted toward the pocket of her lab coat. She was carrying something. A syringe, probably. I recognized the gesture. She had done the same thing before sealing me in the airlock. She had checked her pocket. She had made sure the sedative was ready. You cannot prove any of that, she said. The Coast Guard is already on their way, I said. And I have kept a written record. Everything I know is documented and hidden in a place you will never find. If I disappear, if I die, if I suffer any kind of accident, that document will be released to the FBI, to the CDC, to every major news outlet. I made sure of it before I ever set foot on this island. This was also a bluff. I had written nothing down. I had barely had time to process my own resurrection. But Mira did not know that. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and walked out of the room. I heard her voice in the hallway. She was talking to Silas. Her tone was urgent. Afraid. I could not make out the words. But I did not need to. The seed of doubt had been planted. Silas came to see me an hour later. He was no longer serene. His jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. He closed the door behind him and stood with his back against it. Thea, he said, let us negotiate. You have information that could damage my company. I have resources that could destroy your life. There must be a middle ground. I am not negotiating, I said. I am leaving. On the next ferry. With my passport. And you are going to let me go. Because if you do not, the Coast Guard will have a lot more questions than you can answer. Silas smiled. It was a thin, predatory smile. The Coast Guard is not coming for you, he said. I told you. My team intercepted your transmission. They sent a cancellation signal. The response was called off. I felt a cold spike of fear. But I did not show it. If that is true, I said, then why are you still talking to me? Why not just kill me and be done with it? Silas did not answer immediately. I saw it in his eyes. He was not sure. He was not sure if the Coast Guard was still coming. He was not sure if my document existed. He was not sure if killing me would solve his problems or create new ones. And in that uncertainty, I found my leverage. The standoff lasted 2 more days. 2 days of being confined to that small room. 2 days of refusing food and accepting only sealed bottles of water. 2 days of Mira alternating between threats and pleas. You are ruining your career, she said. You are ruining my career. Silas is going to make sure you never work again. I did not respond. I conserved my energy. I waited. On the 3rd morning, I heard helicopters. The sound was distant at first. A low thrumming vibration. Then louder. Then unmistakable. Mira burst into my room. Her face was white. What did you do? She screamed. There are Coast Guard helicopters landing on the dock. There are police boats surrounding the island. What did you tell them? I smiled. I told them about the unregistered viral vectors, I said. I told them about the safety violations. I told them about the bodies. But mostly I told them that if I did not check in every 12 hours, my evidence would go public. I told them that the radio cancellation was fake. I told them to verify my transmission directly. Apparently they did. The raid on Faros Biotech lasted 8 hours. Federal agents in hazmat suits swept through every laboratory, every storage room, every air duct. They found the modified vectors. They found the falsified safety logs. They found the buried remains of 5 researchers who had been reported as runaways over the past half-decade. They found the life insurance policies. They found the financial records tracing the payouts to shell companies controlled by Silas and his father. They found everything. Silas was arrested on the dock trying to board a private boat. Mira was arrested in the parking lot trying to delete files from a laptop. I watched from the window of the residence wing as they were led away in handcuffs. Silas did not look at me. Mira did. She looked up at my window. Her face was twisted with a hatred so pure it was almost radiant. I raised my hand. I waved. It was a small gesture. A polite gesture. The kind of wave you give a neighbor you barely know. The investigation took months. I cooperated fully. I gave testimony. I provided everything I remembered from both timelines. Some of it was difficult to explain. Some of it was attributed to trauma and suppressed memory. But the physical evidence spoke for itself. The bodies were identified. The insurance fraud was documented. The pharmaceutical patents Silas had been developing using unethically obtained human trial data were revoked. His father was indicted as a co-conspirator. The entire Vane family empire collapsed. My parents visited me once during the trial. They came to my hotel room in Portland. They brought flowers. They brought a check. It was for $50,000. Your portion of the settlement, they said. From the insurance company. We thought you deserved it. I looked at the check. I thought about the lake house they had bought with my blood money in another life. I thought about the memorial service they had skipped. I thought about the way they had accepted Silas's story without a single question. I tore the check in half. Get out, I said. My mother started to cry. My father started to shout. I closed the door. I did not open it again. 6 months later, I stood in the departures terminal of Logan International Airport. My hands were steady. My passport was in my pocket. A real passport. One I had obtained myself. One no one could take from me. I was booked on a flight to Singapore. The virology summit I had missed in my previous life was being held again. I had been invited as a keynote speaker. My research was no longer theoretical. It was informed by experience. I had spent the months since the trial rebuilding my work from memory, refining it, making it better, making it mine. The trial was a media sensation, but I did not stay to watch its conclusion. The headlines called it the Island of Lost Scientists. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Silas was sentenced to life without parole. Mira received 25 years. She wrote me a letter from prison. It was full of apologies and justifications and requests for forgiveness. I did not read past the first paragraph. I did not need to. Forgiveness is not a transaction. It is not an obligation. Some debts cannot be repaid. Some people do not deserve a second hearing. My parents attempted to contact me again through a lawyer. They claimed they had been victims too. They claimed they had been deceived. They claimed they deserved a place in my new life. I instructed my lawyer to send a cease and desist letter. I changed my phone number. I changed my email address. I changed my name. Not legally. Just professionally. I published under my first and middle initials. T.A. Mercer. It was a small thing, but it made me feel like a new person. A person who had chosen herself. The flight to Singapore took 18 hours. I did not sleep. I stared out the window at the ocean. The same ocean I had watched from the window of my prison on the island. I thought about the girl who had died in that airlock. Scared. Betrayed. Desperate to be believed. She was still part of me. She would always be part of me. But she was not me anymore. I was something new. Something forged in the pressure of 2 lifetimes. The Singapore summit was held in a massive convention center overlooking the marina. Researchers from 60 countries attended. I gave my presentation on viral vector safety. The audience listened. They asked questions. They took notes. A young woman approached me after the talk. She was a graduate student from Malaysia. She said my research had inspired her to change her dissertation topic. She said she wanted to work in biosafety ethics. She said she hoped she could be as brave as me someday. I did not know how to respond to that. Brave was not a word I would have chosen for myself. Brave was what you called someone who acted despite fear. I had acted because there was no other choice. But I understood what she meant. Visibility matters. Survival is its own kind of testimony. I spent a week in Singapore after the summit. I walked through the botanical gardens. I ate street food at the hawker centers. I stood at the top of Marina Bay Sands and watched the city glitter below. I was alone. I was free. I was alive. 2 words that had seemed impossible together for so long. Alive and free. Now they were just the facts of my existence. On my last night in the city, I sat at a rooftop bar overlooking the harbor. I ordered a cocktail I could not pronounce. I watched the ships move across the dark water. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from a news app. The civil lawsuit against Pharos Biotech had been settled. The families of the deceased researchers would receive compensation. My own settlement was included in the filing. I had not asked for money. I had not wanted money. But the court had awarded it anyway. I stared at the number on the screen. It was more money than I had ever earned in my life. I thought about what to do with it. I could buy a house. I could fund my own research. I could donate it to the families of the other victims. I could do anything. The choice was mine. That was the point. The choice was finally mine. I closed the news app and opened my email. There was a message from a publisher. They wanted me to write a book about the Pharos investigation. They offered an advance. I typed a reply. I asked for more money. They agreed. I laughed out loud. A real laugh. Not a bitter laugh. Not a hollow laugh. A laugh of genuine surprise. I was writing my own story now. Literally. The book took 2 years to complete. I worked with a co-author, a journalist who specialized in corporate crime. We interviewed survivors. We reviewed court documents. We pieced together the full scope of what Silas and his family had done. The book became a bestseller. It was translated into 12 languages. It was optioned for a documentary series. I did not do any of it for fame. I did it to create a record, so that the people who died on that island would not be forgotten. So that the next Silas Vane who tried to build an empire on stolen lives would know that someone was watching. I'm 32 years old now. I live in a small house near the coast in California. Not an island. Never again an island. I have a dog named Vector. It is a stupid name. I love it. I run my own research consultancy. I advise biotech startups on ethical protocols. I testify before congressional committees. I speak at universities. I tell my story to rooms full of young scientists. And I always end with the same words. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Never let anyone convince you that your safety is less important than their ambition. Sometimes I think about Mira. She will be eligible for parole in 17 years. She will be 50 years old. I wonder what she will look like. I wonder if she will still believe she did nothing wrong. I wonder if she will try to contact me again. If she does, I will not respond. Some chapters do not need an epilogue. Sometimes I think about Silas. He is in a maximum security prison in upstate New York. He has been attacked 3 times by other inmates. He has requested solitary confinement for his own protection. I do not pity him. I do not think about him often. When I do, it is with a kind of detached curiosity, the way you might study an extinct predator in a museum. He was terrifying once. Now he is just a specimen. My parents died 2 years ago. A car accident. I received the news through a distant cousin. I did not attend the funeral. I did not send flowers. I felt sadness. But it was a strange kind of sadness. The sadness of mourning people you should have loved. People who should have loved you, but did not. I have made peace with that absence. I have filled it with people who actually see me, who actually listen, who actually care. Last month, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small glass vial filled with a clear liquid. A note was attached. It said, "This is the antidote. We should have given it to you. We are sorry." No signature. I did not recognize the handwriting. I took the vial to a lab and had it analyzed. It was saline. Just salt water? I do not know who sent it. I do not know if it was a joke or a threat or a genuine attempt at atonement. I keep it on my desk. A reminder that the past is never truly past. It just becomes something you learn to carry. I am happy now. That word used to feel foreign, almost dangerous. Like saying it out loud would cause the universe to take it back. But I am happy. Not because my life is perfect. Not because the trauma has evaporated. But because I wake up every morning and I am still here. I am still fighting. I am still building. I am still breathing. And no one can take that from me. No one can lock me in a room and tell me my life is worth less than a spreadsheet. I know my value now. I set my own price. The Singapore conference invitation sits framed on my office wall, not as a trophy, as a monument. To the day I chose myself. To the flight I finally took. To the woman I became when I stopped letting other people write my script. And every time I look at it, I remember the girl in the boathouse. The radio in her shaking hands. The static in the dark. The voice on the other end saying, "We are on our way." They were on their way. And so was I. Still am. Always will be.